All right, welcome to your personalized deep dive on AI and the future of work. Today, we've got a really interesting mix of sources.
Okay. Yeah.
We've got articles from Forbes, the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, Nexford University, PwC, and we're also going to be taking a look at a research paper titled The Impact of AI on Future Employment Patterns.
Wow. That's quite a collection.
It is, but don't worry, we're gonna help you kind of sort through all this information and pull out what's really important. So, AI is changing the job market. That's pretty much a given. But how?
That is the question.
That is the question, right? So that's what we're gonna try to figure out today. Is it gonna be, robots taking everybody's jobs? Or is it gonna be more of like a partnership, a collaboration?
Collaborative evolution,
Nah.
maybe?
Yeah. And get ready for some really interesting insights because we're going to be talking about how AI could actually create more jobs than it displaces. We'll
Oh,
talk about, what's the connection between AI and immigration and even look at some specific jobs that are already being transformed by AI.
oh, that's great. Yeah, AI is such a dynamic, rapidly changing field, but I think by understanding these trends, it can really help our listeners, prepare themselves for the future of work.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so let's start with what I like to call the double-edged sword of AI.
Okay.
So there's enormous potential, but there are also some concerns that we need to be aware of.
Right. Definitely. You're absolutely right. It's not a, black and white kind of situation. There are benefits and there are risks to consider. On the one hand, AI has the potential to, really increase global productivity and create whole new industries, new jobs, and drive economic growth.
Yeah, I mean, PwC actually predicts that AI could add $15 trillion to global GDP by 2030. I mean, that's more than the economies of China and India combined. That's a huge number.
It's a staggering number. And, how does that translate into economic growth?
Mm.
I think it's because AI can automate those tasks that are, very time consuming, can make businesses more efficient, analyze vast amounts of data, all those things that can really streamline things, make them more profitable.
Mhm.
And, take the healthcare industry as an example.
Right.
You've got AI-powered tools being used to develop personalized medicine, diagnose diseases earlier, even streamline drug discovery. So all of these advancements, they're not just improving people's health. They're also creating jobs in areas like, AI development, data science, healthcare analytics, and so on.
Right. So it's not about robots replacing humans. It's about robots and humans working together to do things that we couldn't do before or to do things in a way that's much more efficient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a true partnership with the potential to create something really valuable. But, we can't ignore the other side of the coin.
Right.
AI can automate jobs that exist today, leading to potential job displacement and maybe even worsening inequalities that we're already seeing.
Right. That's the fear that a lot of people have that robots are going to come and take our jobs.
Right. But, it's not as simple as that. I think it's more nuanced than that. I mean, the Nexford University article highlights that certain roles, especially those involving a lot of repetitive tasks, are more vulnerable to automation.
Right. Like data entry or factory workers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, AI can also augment existing jobs, making people, more efficient, more productive.
Okay. So instead of replacing the worker entirely, the AI would become a tool for that worker to do their job better. Can you give me a real world example of that?
Sure. So let's take radiologic technologists. Those are the
Sure.
people who take x-rays, medical images, and AI can help them analyze these images much faster, much more accurately. They might even detect subtle abnormalities that a human might miss. But it's not replacing the radiologist.
Right.
It's making them even better at their job.
So it really does seem like it's about that balance. It's not about us versus them. It's about finding that balance between automation and augmentation.
You've got it. And PwC makes a really great point. They say that AI is less likely to actually steal your job, but is going to change how you do your job.
Right.
So the key is really having the right skills to thrive in this new world of work.
So it comes down to adaptability and upskilling, right?
Absolutely. All of the sources that we looked at today really emphasize the importance of lifelong learning,
Yeah.
constantly, evolving your skills, staying ahead of the curve. And that might involve formal education, like, the AI-focused BBA and MBA programs that Nexford University offers, or it could be through online courses, boot camps, even just self-directed learning. The key is to be proactive and really kind of grab those opportunities that AI is presenting.
So I guess in a way it's like learning a new language. learning the language of AI so that you can communicate effectively with these technologies, with these systems, and work with them.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, I like that. Because, yeah, the future of work is definitely going to demand, new skills, including those that complement AI, like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, emotional intelligence.
So not just becoming peck wizards,
Right.
but
Yeah.
using these really human skills that might actually become even more valuable.
Exactly, exactly. So now that we've kind of laid that foundation, I think it's a good time to dive into some specific examples of how AI is already impacting the workplace.
Yeah, let's get into some actual real-world stuff.
Exactly.
The research paper focuses on AI in human resources and hiring, which I thought was really fascinating.
Oh, yeah. This is really interesting because it's happening right now. This isn't something that, might happen in the future. It's something that we're seeing unfold in real time.
So the robots are helping us find the best employees.
Well, in a way, yeah. AI is being used for tasks like, you know, screening resumes, matching candidates to jobs, and even just scheduling interviews. These tools can analyze resumes. They can identify keywords and skills. They can even assess a candidate's personality, their cultural fit based on their online presence.
I guess that raises the concern about, is there bias in the algorithm?
Absolutely.
Is the AI picking favorites based on things that shouldn't even matter?
That's a really valid concern, and it's something that, the researchers and developers are actively working on to try to address.
Right.
The goal is to create AI systems that are, fair, unbiased, and transparent. And in fact, some experts believe that AI can actually help companies achieve their diversity and inclusion goals.
How so?
Well, because it can potentially remove some of that human bias from the equation.
That's interesting. So again, we've got that, that potential for good and for bad,
Exactly.
depending on how it's implemented. Yeah, it makes you wonder about, the kinds of guardrails and the kinds of oversight that needs to be put in place to make sure that it is being used for good.
You're absolutely right. And that actually leads us to another really fascinating concept that was explored in the research paper, the rise of what they call digital credentials.
Digital
Yes.
credentials.
So think of it as, a digital representation of your skills and your experience, kind of like a supercharged resume that's actually verified and standardized.
Okay.
So imagine a platform where you can store all of your certifications, your degrees, work history, even your online learning achievements, all in one place.
Yeah.
Secure and easily shareable.
So instead of sending your resume, your transcripts, all that stuff, you can just send this one digital credential.
Exactly. And AI could even play a role in analyzing those credentials, matching candidates with jobs that are a perfect fit.
It sounds like it could really streamline the whole hiring process, make it more efficient, more transparent, maybe even more equitable.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
it just highlights how AI is not just about automation. It's actually creating entirely new ways of doing things.
Yeah, it is. This is all starting to sound a little bit like a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? It's
Hmm.
really exciting to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah. Okay, so this leads us to another really interesting concept that I read about, and that's the race between automation and augmentation.
Right.
Okay, can you explain what that is?
Sure. So this race refers to the dynamic interplay between, you know, AI's potential to automate existing tasks,
Uh-huh.
but also its potential to create new ones.
Okay.
So it's not a simple equation where jobs disappear and are just replaced.
Right.
It's more about this constant evolution.
Okay.
So yeah, while some jobs will definitely be automated, other jobs will be transformed, and entirely new jobs will emerge. It's like a constant game of adaptation.
Right, and the research paper actually predicted that jobs like, radiologic technologists or machinists could be increasingly automated. But then you've got jobs like, industrial engineers, analysts, those sorts of jobs that are more likely to be augmented by AI.
Exactly.
So it really does come down to, what skills are going to be in demand, and then how do we get those skills?
Absolutely. And that brings us to another big piece of this whole puzzle, the skills gap.
Yeah.
So the rapid adoption of AI is creating this huge demand for new skills, and that's leading to a growing skills gap in the workforce.
So what can be done to close that gap?
Well, education and training programs are going to be really crucial, but it's not just about technical skills.
Right.
The research paper also emphasizes that those soft skills, things like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, those are actually going to be even more valuable in an AI-driven world.
So we need to be able to think for ourselves even when we're surrounded by these brilliant machines.
Absolutely. AI can process information, but we're the ones who need to interpret it, apply judgment, make ethical decisions. And that's where those human skills really come into play. Now, to really understand how AI is affecting the workforce, let's look at some specific industries.
Okay. The research paper uses warehousing as a case study. So why warehousing?
Well, warehousing is a really crucial part of modern economies, especially with, e-commerce growing the way that it is. And it's an industry that's already being transformed by AI and automation.
I can just picture these, massive warehouses with robots zipping around, fulfilling orders.
Yeah, exactly. AI-powered systems can optimize the way things are stored. They can track inventory, manage the movement of goods. It's incredible.
So it's leading to an increase in productivity, but what about the workers?
That's the key question, right? So while some jobs are definitely being created, in areas like maintenance and oversight, there is that potential for job losses, especially for workers who are doing those routine and repetitive tasks.
Right, so it's a trade-off, just like we've been talking about. And then there's this whole concept of algorithmic management that the paper brings up. What is algorithmic management?
Okay, so algorithmic management is basically where AI-powered systems are used to, manage and monitor workers, set their targets, track their performance, even make decisions about things like scheduling and pay.
So instead of having a human boss, you've got an algorithm telling you what to do.
In some cases, yes. And while that can lead to greater efficiency and optimization, it also raises concerns about things like worker autonomy, fairness, and potential bias in those algorithms.
Right, so we've got to be careful about how we're implementing these technologies. It sounds like we need to, to think about worker well-being. We need to think about, safety nets, support systems. We need to think about retraining opportunities.
You're absolutely right. And the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, they advocate for that kind of, system thinking approach, really emphasizing the need for those safety nets, support services for workers who are displaced. So, yeah, collaboration between employers, educators, and policymakers is key to
Yeah.
create pathways to success for people who are impacted by AI.
Right, so making sure that everyone benefits from these advancements. Okay, this brings us to a really interesting connection that the research paper highlights the link between AI and immigration.
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating.
It is.
Right, because the research suggests that AI adoption can lead to increased immigration.
Okay.
So, as the demand for AI-related skills grows, we might see more skilled migrants moving to countries where those jobs are available.
So instead of robots taking our jobs, they might actually be attracting more people.
That's right. But, at the same time, the research also warns that AI could actually widen the wage gap and the unemployment gap between migrants and native workers.
Oh, I see. So again, that double-edged sword. So what can we do about that? How do we ensure that everyone has access to these training and job opportunities, regardless of where they're from?
Right. So that's where, policies that promote inclusion, equitable access to resources and education, those are going to be essential.
Okay.
And speaking of policies, the research paper highlights the need for a more nuanced approach to addressing the impact of AI on the workforce. Instead of seeing it as this, simple choice between humans or computers, the paper argues that we need to think about humans and computers.
So it's not about, us versus them. It's about how do we work together.
Exactly.
Right.
And that requires, a much more comprehensive strategy. We need education, training, social safety nets, ethical guidelines for how we develop AI, and even just making sure workers have a voice in, how these AI systems are designed and implemented.
So it sounds like it's a pretty tall order, but it also sounds like it's, it's hopeful. We have the power to shape this future to make sure that AI works for us and not the other way around.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's a perfect segue into another key takeaway from all of this research, which is that AI is not just a technological force. It's a societal force. It really is a reflection of our own values, our own choices. And so the future of work isn't predetermined. It depends on what we do today. It's a mirror. It's reflecting back to us, our own values, our priorities. And the future of work, it's not a foregone conclusion. It really depends on the choices that we make today.
So you're saying that, it's not just about adapting to AI, but it's about how we shape AI.
Exactly. And that's a really important point. And Forbes, they had a really interesting point. They said it shouldn't be humans or computers. It should be humans and computers.
So we're all in this together, robots and all.
It really seems that way. And that means investing in education and training, promoting lifelong learning, fostering collaboration between humans and AI, and creating policies that support workers, and ensuring fairness, encouraging responsible AI development, all of those things.
Okay, so that's a lot to take in, but I want to bring it back to our listener for a second. What are some of the key things that they can take away from this and apply to their own lives?
Yeah, I think one of the most important takeaways is that the future is not set in stone. AI presents both challenges and opportunities, and the choices we make today, they're going to determine how those play out.
So instead of being afraid of robots taking over, we should be thinking about how we can use AI to create a better future.
Exactly, and that starts with awareness, with understanding these forces that are shaping the world around us.
Step one, listen to the deep dive. Check. What's next?
Embrace lifelong learning. The skills that are in demand today, they might be obsolete tomorrow. I mean, the Nexford University article, that really stuck with me because they talked about constantly updating your knowledge and skills. And that could be through, formal education. It could be online courses. It could be, just being curious, exploring new fields. There are so many different ways to learn.
It's like we need to become professional learners, always, constantly evolving, constantly keeping up with everything that's changing.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about the technical skills either. The research paper really highlighted the importance of those human skills that AI can't replicate, like critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, emotional intelligence. I mean, those are the skills that are really going to set us apart in the future.
So it's about finding that, that sweet spot where you've got that human ingenuity combined with the power of AI.
Yeah.
But then there's also this idea of taking action, right? Like being part of the conversation, being involved in how AI is developed and used.
Absolutely. So whether it's through your work or maybe, through your community involvement, your political engagement, I mean, there are so many ways to have a voice in shaping the future of AI. And the research paper even suggests exploring new forms of worker representation to make sure that the people who are most impacted by AI, that their concerns are heard and addressed.
Right, so making sure that AI serves humanity and not
Mhm.
the other way around.
Exactly. And it sounds like there are a lot of different ways to get involved.
There are, and it's important to remember that this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of solution.
Oh, definitely not.
I mean, what works in one industry or one country might not work in another, so we need to be flexible, adaptable, and willing to experiment, right?
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process. We're all learning as we go.
So stay informed, engage in dialogue, and take action to create the future that we want to see.
Exactly. And that actually brings me to a final thought, something for our listeners to think about as they continue their own exploration of this topic. The research paper mentions that AI could potentially make existing inequalities worse.
Right, like the gap between the haves and have-nots could actually widen if we're not careful.
Right, but what if we flip that script? What if we use AI as a tool to actually level the playing field and create opportunities for those who have been marginalized or excluded?
So instead of widening the gap, AI could help bridge the gap.
Precisely. Imagine like AI-powered tools that help people with disabilities access education and employment. Or what about tools that provide personalized learning experiences for students from disadvantaged backgrounds? Or tools that connect underserved communities with resources and services that they need?
That's a really inspiring vision, a future where AI is used to create a more just and equitable world.
And it's a future that's definitely within our reach if we make the right choices and work together.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into AI and the future of work. But of course, the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep imagining those possibilities. And remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us, it's something that we create. Thanks for joining us.
We've talked a lot about the big picture, but I think it's important to bring it back down to the individual level.
Right, like what can our listeners actually do to prepare for this AI-powered future that we keep talking about?
Exactly. It can feel overwhelming sometimes, with all the rapid changes in the news headlines and everything.
It does. Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It is. But I think the first step is to shift your mindset a little bit. Instead of seeing AI as this scary thing that's going to take over the world, try to approach it with a sense of curiosity and see it as an opportunity.
Okay, so embrace the change, don't fear it. But how do we actually keep up with the pace of innovation? I mean, AI is evolving so quickly.
That's where lifelong learning comes in. The skills that are in high demand today might be completely different tomorrow. So we need to be constantly learning, adapting, and expanding our knowledge base.
It's like we need to become professional students always hidden in the books.
In a way, yeah.
Mm.
But it doesn't have to be about formal education necessarily. It's about being curious, exploring new things, and staying up to date with the latest trends. And remember, it's not just about those technical skills either.
Right. We talked about that before, those uniquely human skills.
Exactly. Things like critical thinking, creativity, communication, problem solving, emotional intelligence. These are the skills that AI can't replicate, and they're going to become even more valuable in the future.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between technical expertise and those human skills.
Exactly. And that balance is going to be crucial as we move forward.
So, what are some practical things that our listeners can do to start preparing for this future?
One thing is to identify the skills that are most likely to be in high demand. The Nexford University article mentioned a few key areas like data analysis, cybersecurity, and of course, AI development itself.
So, maybe it's time to brush up on those coding skills or take an online course in data science.
Exactly. Or maybe you're interested in something completely different, like the ethical implications of AI. There are so many different paths you can take.
It's really about finding what interests you and then diving in.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try out different online learning platforms, attend workshops, or even just start reading books and articles about AI. The more you expose yourself to these concepts, the more comfortable you become.
It's all about having that growth mindset, being open to new ideas, and constantly challenging yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, learning shouldn't feel like a chore. It can be fun and engaging. There are so many resources available these days that make learning accessible and even enjoyable.
Okay, so we've talked about skills development, but what about the bigger picture? How can we as individuals influence the direction of AI development? I mean, it feels like this massive force that's beyond our control.
I understand that feeling.
Mm.
But we're not powerless.
Yeah.
We can absolutely influence the direction of AI, and it starts with recognizing that we have a voice.
Okay, so how do we use that voice effectively?
Well, one way is to support organizations that are advocating for responsible AI development. There are groups out there working to ensure that AI is aligned with human values, promotes fairness and equity, and minimizes harm.
So making sure that AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
Exactly. And we can also advocate for policies that promote ethical AI development. That can involve supporting regulations that protect privacy, ensure transparency, and hold companies accountable for the impact of their AI systems.
It sounds like it's going to take a collective effort to really steer AI in the right direction.
It definitely will. It's not something any one person or organization can do alone. We need to work together to create a future where AI benefits everyone.
So to sum it all up, what's the one message you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
The future is not predetermined. It's a blank canvas, and we have the power to paint the picture we want. AI is a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to decide how we want to use it. So stay informed, stay engaged, and stay curious. The future is in our hands.
I love that. Well, that's it for our deep dive into AI and the future of work. We hope you found it informative and inspiring and maybe even a little bit empowering.
It was a pleasure being here. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shaping the future you want to see.
Thanks for listening.